This lesson takes a deeper look at constants in PHP and explains not just what they are, but why they matter in real-world applications. A constant in PHP is a named value that, once defined, cannot be changed during the execution of a script. This makes constants ideal for values that must remain stable, such as configuration settings, application-level flags, fixed strings, or values that are shared across multiple parts of a system. Welcome to our channel. Think of constants as a way to protect important values from accidental modification. In a growing codebase, especially in larger systems or teams, variables can easily be overwritten or reused in unintended ways. Constants remove that risk by design. Once defined, their value is locked in, which gives you predictability and safety. In PHP, constants are typically defined using the define function. Unlike variables, constants do not use a $sign prefix. For example, you might define a constant for an application name or environment setting, and then reuse that constant throughout your code without worrying that it might be changed somewhere else. Naming conventions are very important when working with constants. Constant names are case-sensitive, which means that uppercase and lowercase letters are treated as different. By convention, developers write constant names in uppercase letters, often separating words with underscores. This makes them stand out clearly from variables and functions when reading code. For example, a constant like app name or database host is immediately recognizable. A valid constant name must start with a letter or an underscore. After that, it can include letters, numbers, or underscores. While PHP technically allows defining constants with unusual or even invalid-looking names, this is strongly discouraged. Doing so can make your code harder to read, harder to maintain, and more prone to future compatibility issues. It is always best to follow clean and predictable naming rules. Another important detail is that older versions of PHP allowed constants defined with define to be case-insensitive. However, modern PHP versions treat constants as strictly case-sensitive, and relying on case insensitivity is no longer a good practice. Writing constants in uppercase consistently helps avoid subtle bugs related to naming mismatches. Constants in PHP have global scope. This is one of their most powerful features. No matter where you define a constant, it can be accessed from anywhere in your script. You do not need to pass it into functions or worry about scope boundaries like you would with variables. This makes constants extremely useful for values that need to be shared across multiple files or components. For example, if you define a constant for a configuration value, such as an API endpoint or a version number, you can use it inside functions, classes, or included files without any extra effort. This reduces duplication and keeps your code consistent. PHP also provides predefined constants. These are built into the language and are always available. They often describe the environment, PHP version, system details, or error levels. In addition to predefined constants, there are also magic constants. These are special constants that change depending on where they are used. For example, some magic constants can tell you the current file name, line number, or class name. Even though they are called constants, they behave a bit differently because their value depends on context. In object-oriented programming, PHP also supports class constants. These are constants that belong to a class rather than the global scope. Starting with newer versions of PHP, class constants can have visibility levels such as public, protected, or private. This means you can control where and how they are accessed, which is very useful when designing clean and maintainable architectures. Using constants correctly can significantly improve code quality. They make your code easier to read because meaningful names replace hard-coded values. Instead of seeing a random string or number, you see a descriptive name that explains its purpose. This also makes updates easier. If a value needs to change, you update it in one place instead of searching through your entire codebase. Another benefit is reducing errors. Since constants cannot be changed, You eliminate a whole category of bugs related to accidental reassignment. This is particularly important in larger systems where many developers are working on the same code. However, it is important to use constants wisely. Not every value needs to be a constant. They are best used for values that are truly fixed and represent a single source of truth. Overusing constants for temporary or frequently changing data can make your code unnecessarily rigid. It is also important to avoid naming conflicts. Using names that might overlap with future PHP features or reserved keywords can cause issues later. A good practice is to use clear prefixes related to your application or module to keep constant names unique. To sum it all up, constants in PHP are a simple but powerful feature. They provide stability, improve readability, and help enforce good coding practices. By understanding how to define them, name them properly, and use them effectively across your application, you can build more reliable and maintainable